We're going to talk about law firm titles, which would be of counsel, non-equity partner, equity partner. Those are the most common titles in law firms. Of counsel is a title that's traditionally given to attorneys who the law firm may want to keep around for one reason or another. They typically won't have a lot of business, so that's one of the reasons that they have the title as opposed to partner. And they may not want to work as hard as partners. Partners have a lot of responsibility, are expected to contribute a lot of revenue and may be paid according to different scales. Someone that's of counsel will typically get a flat salary, and that's it. I mean, they may be eligible for bonuses, of course, but the big thing I would say, though, about an of counsel title is it does have a role of permanence to it. So the person that's of counsel typically will be at the law firm for an extended period of time, and they may spend their career as of counsel. And a lot of times they'll be around quite a long time. The attorney will be made of counsel at different firms depending on the qualifications of a given firm. So a super competitive firm, Skadden may make almost everybody of counsel. It may be extremely difficult to become partner. Even to become of counsel there might be difficult. But the idea is when someone is made of counsel in a law firm, they're given that title because they don't have what it takes to be a partner in a top law firm. They may not even want to be a partner. They may choose the of counsel title on their own without saying they don't want to be partner. They would prefer to be of counsel. Another type of person that's made of counsel are people that may have left the practice of law for one reason or another. So they may have gone into politics, they may have gone in-house and come back. They may have been a judge and come back to the practice of law and want to return to the law firm. A lot of times law firms will also make people of counsel that are getting very old and kind of slowing down. So they may be near retirement, or they even may have gone into retirement and come back. I mean, the traditional of counsel, when people think of the title, is someone that's very kind of old and distinguished and that sort of thing. Another type of counsel that is made would be very smart attorneys that don't necessarily have the interpersonal skills to relate with clients or other attorneys. Sometimes in different firms, they may make someone of counsel that does good work but has personal problems. I mean, I can think of one firm where they've got a very smart of counsel that went to Yale Law School that has been in and out of institutions for psychological problems, but when he's operating at full gear, he's doing very well. But he may show up and work 6 months and then be gone for a month or whatever with his problems. A lot of times they'll make attorneys of counsel in a practice area where it just doesn't generate enough business for the firm to be profitable. So a law firm may have a practice, for example, in trademark law or trust and estates or something where there's just not a lot of work coming in. And so the person can't really be a partner because there's just not enough work. Sometimes they will put attorneys in niche management roles inside of law firms where they may be responsible for something in management as opposed to actually practicing law, but they may have some involvement in practicing law. Those type of attorneys may be made of counsel. In addition, attorneys with other obligations sometimes, like outside businesses who want to make a connection with a law firm and do some work, may be made of counsel. Sometimes a law firm, so it looks like it has someone that's very strong in that practice area, will be brought in even though they don't do much work and given the title of counsel. A lot of times women who may leave to start a family and want to come back with reduced hours are made of counsel. And people with outside ambitions that keep them away from the office a lot, they may just have other things they're interested in, become of counsel. So to summarize, I would say that the title of counsel is used for someone that doesn't have kind of the level of commitment that a partner would have. They put themselves in a position where they want to basically have a job or collect a paycheck or be associated with a law firm, but they're basically saying, I'm not going to perform at the highest level possible. And so they're given that title. A non-equity partner is similar to of counsel. So someone is made a non-equity partner typically, or becomes a non-equity partner when they don't have really any business, or they may have some business but need to kind of rise to another level in order to be considered to be an equity partner. The term kind of gained popularity in the 1980s. What happened is consulting firms came into law firms to try to figure out how to make them more profitable and competitive. And the idea is that you would have different tiers of partnership in order to make sure that there was the highest profits possible at the top. So what happens with a non-equity partner is they're typically people that receive a salary. So they're on salary. The salary in some cases is very low. I talk to non-equity partners pretty much every day, and non-equity partners will have a salary that's very similar to what a senior associate's making. They're given a title of partner. That title may actually only be known to other partners within the firm, but they don't necessarily receive anywhere near what an equity partner would receive in terms of compensation. But the thing about a non-equity partner is if they're young and if they've risen to non-equity partner from being an associate, for example, that means the law firm thinks that they have the drive and ambition to possibly one day be an equity partner. And in many cases, they're being tested to see if they can get business and kind of go up in order to be like a real partner. And so it's sort of a testing stage. And the thing about a non-equity partner, though, is that if you don't generate business as a non-equity partner, some law firms may actually let you go after a short period of time. You're kind of given a runway. Well, in most law firms, if you're made a non-equity partner, you may be given some money to decorate your office. You're given a new title. The law firm announces they made you a partner. You're given probably a little bit more money than you were making in the past, but you don't have equity in the firm. So you're not expected to contribute any money to the firm in terms of capital contribution, and you're not receiving a percentage of the law firm's profits. If you're a non-equity partner, you're expected to go out and start generating work for yourself and for other attorneys in the firm. And you're typically given a short runway to do that, which is 2 to 4 years. It's very common for attorneys to not be able to generate business. The law firm may keep them on if they're profitable and doing a lot of work. Sometimes they'll allow them to continue servicing clients that someone else has brought in, so they can say they have a partner doing it. But in most cases, those attorneys will go to in-house, to a company. A lot of times that's what they're interested in doing. They may start a solo practice, or they may take another job. Another thing they may do is they may actually move to another law firm. There's law firms that may welcome them and give them partnership titles as well because of their experience. Or they can actually move illegitimately. So a lot of non-equity partners will move firms illegitimately. They will say things like, I have all this business, but there's conflicts and the law firm's not letting me take them, and they'll move to another firm acting like when they move to that new law firm, they will bring business with them, and they don't. And they may start a cycle of doing that over and over again. It's probably, that sometimes happens. Well, it's very common for attorneys to be voted down from being an equity partner and then becoming a non-equity partner. You have to remember that the attorneys with the equity, they want to make as much money as possible. So if someone's taking a big slice of that equity and the profits, and they get rid of them because they're not performing, then that means they make more money. So someone may be voted down from being an equity to a non-equity partner if they don't bill enough hours, they're not bringing in new clients and business. Sometimes there just may be performance issues with the attorney, meaning they're just not doing a good job with their clients. A lot of times attorneys that are with large law firms and have done good work may have personal problems, people accusing them of sexual abuse, lawsuits against the firm, malpractice, substance abuse. And then another thing that happens a lot of times too is there'll be like new partners that come in that have a lot of business, like new equity partners, and they may not like kind of this dead weight at the top, and they will a lot of time push them away. So an equity partner, and it's important to understand too, like there's some law firms that don't have two types of partnerships, they only have one. But typically an equity partner is someone that's performing at a very high level, and they're performing at or above the standards that the law firm has for its equity partners. And the more competitive the law firm and the better the law firm, the higher those standards. So the person's typically exceptional. There's someone that has a really good reputation inside and outside the firm. They're more than capable of carrying their own weight inside the law firm. And some law firms may generate business, and most law firms they will, but when you get into these really kind of high level law firms, like the very best law firms, they may not even need business because the law firms are that good. And the equity partner is typically someone that's dedicated their life. They give everything to the practice of law and to their law firm. An equity partner will evaluate non-equity partners and associates. They'll make financial decisions about when to hire in the law firm and when to cut people back and let people go during recessions. They'll fire people. They can vote to hire new partners laterally or advance people to partnership. They can decide as a group when to open and close offices. They may decide who's in charge of pitching large potential clients. They can decide how to market the law firm, make decisions about that. But they're also liable, a lot of cases, for things that could go wrong with a law firm. So they have liability. They can be a point of contact for important clients. And overall, they're responsible for maintaining high morale within the firm, assisting with public relations, because they own the firm.